Anything he did was within his rights as a parent, but now he's an accused felon. Ben Kaiser's mom said he has ADHD. A doctor and the courts agreed, so they decided to put him on medicine.
I just can't bring myself to do it.
Dad disagreed.
These drugs, in my opinion, are child abuse. It's just insane. You take a perfectly normal kid and you just wipe him out with these drugs just so he can sit still in school.
Jim Kaiser saw the writing on the wall. Ben's mom was going to get custody, so he took his 9-year-old and disappeared.
Basically dropped off the grid. Apartment found vacant, no more phone calls, no more use of a credit card, nothing.
For 3.5 months, police had no luck tracking them down. A random traffic stop in Florida spoiled Jim's plans. Ben's mom flew to Florida to get him back. She said she plans to keep him on the medicine because it helps.
Isn't it possible that everyone else is right and you're wrong?
No, it's impossible. I know my son better than anybody in the world. I've spent more time with him than anybody in the world, including his mom, and I know him a whole lot better than the courts do.
I know sometimes we may not agree with everything that's happening, but that's the system that we have, and it's the best system that we have to work with right now.
The FDA has brainwashed Americans with the belief that only toxic and poisonous chemicals called prescription drugs can cure anybody of anything, and that no whole plant food or whole food supplement can heal anyone from anything. This is the exact reverse of the truth, yet many brilliant doctors and researchers have had their reputations ruined and their businesses destroyed for daring to help heal people of diseases by something so simple as changing their diets and lifestyles. The FDA does not care about the health of Americans. They care only about the wealth of their corporate friends. The FDA is trying to ban electronic cigarettes because they are becoming a threat to the success of tobacco companies.
But these cigarettes do not have tobacco.
You're eliminating the 3,000 chemicals that make up an actual tobacco-filled cigarette.
These are electronic cigarettes. They contain one highly addictive ingredient, nicotine, and run on a battery. It warms up a cartridge of liquid nicotine, creating a vapor similar to smoke.
You're getting just what you need, and it's the nicotine.
The fact is, the Food and Drug Administration isn't sure. It's investigating. But right now, the FDA tells News Center 5 there is no scientific evidence that e-cigarettes are safe.
They have stopped the import of this device into the United States, and it's possible that soon they will stop the sale of this product.
Honest, hardworking Americans are now being punished by the government for doing good deeds to help other people.
Do you think that you broke the law?
No.
Ben Bond never believed putting a few coins in a few parking meters could lead to this.
The handcuff marks are still on my hands.
The 30-year-old was arrested by Eugene police Wednesday, charged with harassment and obstruction of governmental administration after a run-in with one of the city's parking enforcement officers.
Changing like that.
What sparked the incident was what Bond considered an act of kindness, putting coins in the expired parking meters of strangers.
This is video from last summer when we first introduced you to Jonathan Shonacase and his courtesy ride service. He says it's a free service that takes people home if they feel they've had too much to drink. Shonacase says if someone offers him a tip, he will accept, and that violates the city's taxi limousine ordinance. Over the weekend, Quincy police officers set up a sting operation to catch Shonacase in the act of violating that city ordinance.
In an even bigger abuse of power, the Office of Code of Enforcement in Indianapolis, Indiana, recently called upon their SWAT team as a final move against a property owner who let his grass grow higher than 1 foot. This represents a major infringement on Americans' personal property rights. SWAT teams today have fewer restrictions on conducting forced entry raids than do U.S. forces in Afghanistan. Americans today don't even have the freedom to talk on the phone on a street corner. Without any provocation, this police officer decided to take a man talking on the phone and slam him to the ground. To protect the officers, the police camera magically pans away, but the cop was later shown purposely slamming his car door on the ankle of the victim.
We were recently contacted by a member of NIA who lives in Florida. Police are literally checking people's cars to see if they're unlocked. This member literally went out for 5 minutes to get some coffee. When he came back, his doors were locked. And inside was a flyer that said it was the sheriff's department and he needed to make sure his door was locked. literally leaving a little yellow pamphlet. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. Shouldn't Americans have the right, have the choice to lock something or not lock something, or have the convenience of not wanting to lock their doors? I mean, what if the man had a key that was broken and he wasn't able to get inside of his car after it was locked? Imagine the inconvenience this government intrusion into his life would have caused for the rest of his day.
Some states are now making it a crime to videotape out-of-control cops.
A Harford County man now faces up to 5 years in prison after he recorded a bizarre traffic stop last month in Harford County.
He accepted the speeding ticket he says he deserved and did nothing more than just post this video on YouTube. It was all but forgotten until this morning when he was served a warrant and now faces the charge of illegal monitoring with his helmet camera. State police believe they have a case. In Maryland, you cannot record someone audibly without them knowing. It is a felony. But Graber argues it was obvious and points to this picture of the camera on top of his helmet, a common practice, he says, with riders.
Most Americans today, especially our youth, no longer think for themselves. Their minds are preoccupied and distracted by trivial matters like Jersey Shore. They absolutely take no interest in learning the truth about the U.S. economy and politics. We constantly elect puppet politicians to Washington who know nothing other than to bribe voters with promises of entitlements that we can't afford without printing the money and stealing from other Americans.
Politicians don't have anything to give. They can only take. They can only take and give to others. It's like a politician saying they create jobs. They don't create jobs. They just take money from one group of people and pay another group of people. Politicians cannot create jobs. American innovators, business creators, entrepreneurs, with the lack of red tape, not more red tape, deregulation, not more regulations, that's what will create jobs in this country.
Only 58% of our government spending is paid for through taxation. The U.S. government is so desperate to keep that number from declining to below 50% that the IRS will stop at nothing to get every single penny of taxes it's owed.
Came into the car wash, handed my manager a bill, and it was from the Internal Revenue Service. They said, we need you to pay up your back taxes.
But when they looked at the bill...
Because the amount was 4 cents, 4 pennies.
4 pennies.
4 pennies, yes ma'am.
Zeph couldn't believe 2 agents drove to his business to hand deliver a bill for just pennies.
And once I found out the amount, then I started to actually chuckle.
But Zeph stopped laughing when he took a closer look. After 3 years of penalties and fees, the 4-cent back tax skyrocketed to more than $200.
Even state and local governments are going crazy to collect every penny that is owed to them. The wife of one NIA member in Omaha, Nebraska, recently started cleaning houses in order to generate extra income so that their family can begin accumulating physical silver to protect themselves during hyperinflation. After handing out just a few hundred flyers in their neighborhood with no other advertising, and before she even began cleaning any houses, the state sales tax office called her and said she didn't have a sales tax permit and that she needed to get one immediately to begin collecting sales tax. Although the federal government has a printing press to fund their spending that goes beyond what can be raised through taxation, state and local governments have no such option. Local law enforcement today are waiting behind every tree with radar guns and stopping otherwise law-abiding citizens for seatbelt violations in what can be described in no other way than a desperate revenue grab to help balance the budget and keep their jobs. This is causing some Americans to go insane and act in inappropriate ways.
Sir, the conversation's over. You can complain to the chief of police. That's not a problem. You can go to court and complain to the judge. That is not a problem.
The cops are everywhere. You go over a yellow line, man, boom, they got you. They're waiting. They're all over. Oh, it's not quotas. Oh, no. Yeah, it is. They got them on tape in New York City, talking about the quotas.
Because after I bounce you to a different platoon for inactivity, the next thing is to put you on paper, start rating you below standards, and look to fire you. I really don't have a problem firing people. I don't need to carry them. They're counting seatbelts and cell phones. They're counting double parkers and bus stops. If day tours contributed with 5 seatbelts and 5 cell phones a week, 5 double parkers and 5 bus stops a week. But you as the bosses have to demand this and have to count it. Your goal is 5 in each of these categories. Not a difficult task. It could be accomplished on Monday. If it's not accomplished by Monday, you've got to follow up with it by Tuesday. But there's no reason why it can't be done by Thursday.
All right.
So whatever I get Friday, Saturday, or Sunday is gravy. I'm not looking to break records here.
NIA has been hearing from members in Los Angeles that at LAX, parked cars in the airport parking lot are now being cited for expired registrations, no front plate, tinted windows, and other vehicle code violations. This kind of behavior was previously unheard of, but with state and local governments near bankruptcy, they simply have no other choice. Even more outrageous, in San Francisco, the police have started a pilot program that is training civilians to do their work for them.
The whole idea behind civilian investigators is to speed up response times, save money, and to free up sworn officers so they can focus on more important things. The way it is right now in San Francisco, sworn officers respond to nonviolent crimes such as burglaries and car break-ins. But under a pilot program, 15 civilian investigators, who would cost about half as much as officers, will be assigned to respond to those types of cases. They will be trained to collect evidence, conduct interviews, and photograph crime scenes. The 6-month pilot program is scheduled to begin in January. It will cost nearly $1 million. The 15 civilian investigators are set to work in only a couple of San Francisco's 10 district stations.
NIA considers this to be a perfect example of how fiscally inept major cities in the U.S. are today. San Francisco thinks they will be saving money by paying 15 civilians nearly $1 million for 6 months of work. That equals out to about $67,000 per civilian, or over $133,000 per civilian on an annualized basis, and they say this will cut their costs in half? Does this mean that police officers in San Francisco are now being paid $267,000 per year? Not only will this plan make San Francisco's budget an even bigger disaster than it is today, but it will have the unintended consequence of encouraging more burglaries and other forms of theft in the city because no evidence that is collected by civilians is going to hold up in court. NIA has learned about the latest schemes cities are using in a sad and desperate attempt to generate revenue. It is now becoming common practice in major cities that if the police are called to an apartment building for a verbal dispute or other minor incidents, the city building inspector will come along with the police officer. If they find any minor violation, such as a rusted heat vent